Yes, sir. Everything is okay. Shall we begin the session, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm set.
Very good evening, one and all. Today we are going to have a wonderful session. It is on our 99th webinar session. With us, eminent speaker from Christ University, Professor Satyasilan sir is here. He is going to share my important thing. Everyone shouting that the happiness principles. Even for me, also looking for that, sir. I would like to learn a lot from you. Now I request, I invite you on behalf of the Department of Psychology, American College, and core team, the Mental Health webinar series. I welcome you, sir. Now I request Mr. Krishnan to introduce the speaker to the participants over here. Sir, over to you.
Good evening, friends. Today we are going to have a fantastic session by Dr. Satyashilan from Christ University. Before introducing him, I would like to have a few instructions which you can oblige. Please keep your mic on mute mode so that it will give a conductive space for everyone to learn. Also, when you are on video, kindly maintain the online etiquette so that others feel safe and comfortable. And you can send your questions to our mail ID, mywebinarfeedback@gmail.com, and you can unmute your mic during the question and answer session, and you will be queued and you will be given a chance to ask question. Professor Satyasilan will be happy to answer your questions. So now it's my immense pleasure to introduce Dr. Satyashilan, who's going to present on happiness principles. He's an associate professor and head of the Department of Organization, Behavior and Human Resources in the School of Business Management at Christ University. And his doctorate topic is, on spirituality, flourishing, and work engagement. These combination will help the work environment and personal satisfaction at work. All this thing will be enhanced. His research interests are in employee engagement, workplace engagement, positive psychology, happiness, flourishing leadership, spirituality, and mindfulness. He has got immense experience of 24 years with the global corporations in leadership roles and human resources department, and with the multinational like Nokia and other companies, Allianz and other companies. And he has got immense teaching experience at premium institutes in India, like Christ University, Symbiosis in Pune, and Allianz Business School. Now we are going to have a great session by Dr. Satyashilan, Christ University. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishnan sir, and I really need to thank Mr. Krishnan and Dr. Murugesan for inviting me for the session. I also need to thank my wife, Anurag, who actually introduced, that. So really thanks to all of them. I'm here, and I'm really passionate about this topic because although I'm not a psychologist by training, but I have done my research PhD topic on this particular aspect. Because it's always been intriguing to me, what makes us happy. Because many times I know we have been in organizations and we really get tired and we think, when is this going to end? When I'm going to stop earning money? So this has always been on my top of the mind. So that's one of the reasons why this topic has been of great interest to me. I'm not I don't want to claim that I know everything, but what I'm going to share is some review literature, some research. So it's not going to be no philosophical inputs. It's primarily going to be research-based content that I'm going to things that I've learned as part of my PhD. But certainly what I intend to kind of offer in this session is to understand what we mean by happiness, what is happiness. I'm sure all of us as laymen, we have an idea of what happiness is, but then how do we become happy? So I'm going to give some pointers of what makes us happy and how we can be happy in life. So with that, I think I will start with a story. I think all stories are interesting to all of us. So I will start with a simple story. This goes something like this. One day there's an enlightened sage in a forest, who's very well known in the country. And he is going through a forest where there's a sannyasi who's doing severe penances to attain enlightenment. And on seeing the sage, he comes and says, "Oh sage, when will I attain enlightenment?" So the sage says, how many stars do you see in the sky? To which the sannyasi says, oh sage, it's still not, the daylight is still not set, but I can already see some hundreds of stars in the sky. So the sage says, you will be born 100 times before you attain enlightenment. And then this man, on hearing this, becomes very miserable. He says, what is the point of all my penance in this life if I can't attain enlightenment in this life? So saying that, he probably leaves his penance and walks away. And then the sage continues his journey. He goes he's walking, and then there's a woodcutter he meets on the way. And the woodcutter, seeing the sage, comes rushing and says, oh, revered sage, when will I attain enlightenment? To which the sage asks, what do you see above? The woodcutter says, he's a woodcutter, he's under a tree. So he says, sir, I'm standing under a tree and I see its branches and leaves. So the sage says, how many leaves does the tree have? The woodcutter, he's a little illiterate. So he says, oh sage, I only know to count 1,000, but there are many more than 1,000 leaves as I can see on the tree. And then the sage says, you will be reborn 1,000 times before you attain enlightenment. On hearing this, the woodcutter thanks the sage and jumps with joy. Oh, I just have 1,000 birds to live. So kind of, it's a contract. So, 100 lives, a person who's focused on happiness or so focused on enlightenment, 100 lives is too much for him. And here is this probably a little bit illiterate, little bit this one, but who takes 1,000 birds so happily. So the message kind of, what I want to convey to this story is that actually happiness is not a state to arrive at. There's no end goal, that this is where I will be happy. If I reach this, I'll be happy. Many times we kind of think, if I save so much of money, I'll be happy. If I have a house, I will be happy. If I get a probably beautiful partner, I'll be happy. So I think it's really not some of those things that we arrive at it. Probably it's a manner of living. That's what is a message, probably even through this whole presentation, that's what I will say. Although I will be certainly sharing some, not techniques, actually some ways of being happy and some things we can do to be happy. But the whole idea is that it's not an end goal. There is no goal as happiness. We just need to do things that we are happy with to actually be happy. So that's really the message I want to kind of drive through the story. So what is that we are going to talk about in this session? Probably defining happiness. I'll explain why we need to define happiness, probably give a flavor, because for lay people, many of us, we really don't know, we know what happiness, but still it's important from a certain perspective to define happiness. The different kinds of happiness that different philosophers have spoken about, why happiness is important. I'll share some insights into that and how to increase our happiness levels. So these are probably the broad four. Not that I'm restricting to this topic, but probably the takeaway from this session are these 4 topics. So what is happiness? Maybe I would like to see some chat before we kind of proceed. So if I can see some chat out there, what the audience here thinks happiness is about. Can I quickly see some words out there? Some words, if some of you can put in some words out there. Yeah, pleasant feeling. Yeah, kind of get it. Pleasant feeling, attitude, self-satisfaction. Sure, exactly. So something like this. I'm sure as laymen, we all kind of have a clue of what happiness is, and this one. But I'm sure where I've kind of closed the chat, but I know that the words will not be very different. Probably we can often describe it in terms of having joy, pride, contentment, gratitude. And this word cloud kind of describes most of it. Sometimes our children, our kids are a joy, so that's just happiness. Health sometimes, is this one, lifestyle. So all this becomes happiness. But from a research, but why do we need to actually define happiness? The reason I'm telling we need to have a understanding of happiness, especially from a research perspective or from somebody who's wanting to understand what happiness is, that so that we can, when we say we want to be happy, we actually need to know what we define as happiness. And therefore we know what causes that happiness and what is the effect of that happiness. That's really, so therefore I'm going to share a definition, like in all social sciences, there is no one definition, but I like really the definition given by this author. I'm not able to pronounce it so clearly, but forgive me, Sonia Lyubomirsky, I think that's how it's pronounced. She written a very book on the how of happiness, and she offers this definition that it's happiness is the experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. So from this definition, basically I take away 2 things. One, It's a set of fleeting positive emotions. For example, this picture depicts it. Somebody, like, say, for example, if we want to go to a movie, it makes us temporarily happy. But probably 2 hours later from when we come to the movie, it still makes us unhappy because we have some other things on the mind. So something that's just gratification of the senses. The senses respond to this kind of feeling. So that's one definition of or understanding of happiness where you get from this particular definition. The second is deeper sense of meaning and purpose in life. For example, this picture of probably a youngster is teaching a set of school kids probably who don't have proper infrastructure. They're sitting on the ground. I'm sure on a day-to-day basis, there's going to be a nightmare. There are no school, there's no seating, there's no board. But for this person who's going to teach, in the long run, whatever the circumstances, whatever the constraints he or she's facing, they see a sense of purpose. So this is really what kind of from this definition I take away, and therefore that brings us what are the 2 types of happiness. I said we will talk about the 2 types of happiness. So therefore that brings me to the next topic of what the 2 types of happiness. So there is one I want to share the story. Not a story, and for example, an example. There is this lady called Christina Onassis. I think we will know her. Those of us who are a little bit older, we will know Aristotle Onassis. He is most well known. He's a business tycoon, but most well known for marrying the widow of John F. Kennedy, Jacqueline Onassis. So his daughter, Aristotle's Onassis' daughter, Christina Onassis, she inherited wealth beyond imagination, and she splurged on every kind of extravagant pleasure she could think of. And she as she says in this book, and at some point of time, her only focus on gratifying her senses. That's one way of how people live, the pursuit of pleasure as a means of life satisfaction. And how do we kind of define? It's an immediate sensory gratification. For example, we want to go for movies, we want to have a lunch or dinner. Probably we go. Some of us may prefer going to a pub. Something. We just. So those are one that is immediate gratification of our senses, and something. The fundamental moral obligation here is to maximize the experience of pleasure. So in this sense, sometimes you will find how do researchers measure this? They might ask things of you like, do you what activities do you do that gives you pleasure? Do you believe in things like life is short, so eat dessert first? Do you do things that excite? So this is a way, So one philosophy of this one, which is called the pursuit of pleasure. Hedonism, I think the most well-known proponent of the school is the Greek philosopher called Epicurus. I think he lived somewhere in 4th century BC. Even in India, we have some of those groups or historical philosophical groups that I think some of you are familiar with the Indian schools of philosophy, the Charvakas. The Charvakas were known for this materialistic, there's nothing beyond the gratification of senses. That's one of the fundamental beliefs. So Epicurus, a Greek philosopher gave this, that's hedonism, that gratifying the senses is one way of attaining happiness. The second is pursuit of a meaningful life as a means of satisfaction. Probably the most well-known proponent of this school of thought is Aristotle, who said the fundamental aim of human life is to live a happy life. And he said a happy life comes from living a meaningful life. And here I will throw, I'm not sure if there are people from overseas or outside of India participating, because there's some of them express interest. But there is this lady, I think people in Karnataka might be very familiar with this lady, Salu Marada Timmaka, who is now 108 years old. She dealt with her childless life in a very, very unique way. She planted nearly 400 or 385 trees on a 4-kilometer stretch of NH49. Now, if one were to look, she planted those trees 70 years back. Nobody had a clue what she was doing. Nobody cared what was happening. And for her, but that made a sense, It was no gratification, immediate gratification of senses. Nobody came to her and said, oh, what, you're great for planting trees, it's great. Nothing, nobody knew her. Probably today, 70 years later, we're all sitting and appreciating her. But something that, so adds meaning to life. So that's one perspective of happiness. So this is something being true to one's inner self, identifying virtues and cultivating and be all that you can be. And some of the questions, some of the thoughts, you might probably experience when people are asking, doing a research, how do you live your mind in life meaningfully, will be around questions like, do you have a higher purpose in life? Do you things that benefit other people and owning responsibility? These are some of the ways. So the 2 types of happiness is hedonic and eudaimonia. These are 2 schools. And this school is, of course, even in India, we have, for example, Aristotle, of course, the most well-known Greek philosopher who propagates this. But even in India, if you look at the Indian philosophy, what the Bhagavad Gita says, you know, karmanyeva adhikaraste, ma phaleshu kadasana. No, do your duty. No, have a meaning in life. You know, just do what you think you can do. So that's some of those philosophies. You know, that this one. I'm not getting into the different schools of philosophy. That's really not the scope. But just to have a flavor that these two types of schools have found their place in every civilization. Now the question is, you know, for example, today I think Dr. Suresh made it, you know, Dr. Murugesan made it very clear that he's very keen on understanding, you know, happiness, and there's a lot of importance. We're all talking about it and all that. And it is true, there's a lot of focus being on happiness. I'm not sure whether it is the right thing to do, but I just did some Google search. This is as of 2 o'clock today afternoon. If you see I did a search on happiness, I did a search on unhappiness, and I did a search of sadness. And you can see the results. 78 crores or 780 million posts on happiness, which means people are looking for happiness so much more. And how many people are looking or interested in posting about unhappiness? Probably 1 crore or 10 million, if you put it in million. Sadness, probably 11 crores, which is, but even if you add up both unhappiness and sadness together, it doesn't match up to what happiness leads to, you know, almost 6.5 times, 600% more. So it's very obvious. All of us are in search of happiness and not in search of unhappiness or sadness. Obvious that the society we're living in is focusing on that. Now, you know, coming to some more information, for example, in 1776, what the point I'm trying to make, you know, drive is that the modern society is so focused on happiness. For example, the 1776 US Declaration says that all men have a right to the pursuit of happiness. Some more information, 1926, the happy birthday song gets invented, it makes us happy. Birthday, happy birthday kind of a scenario that gives us happiness. 1960, the smiley face, you know, really very commercial here, because this is the company, so the smiley face company leases out, you know, all the smileys that you see around, those symbols. It goes for $185 million, you know, across the globe. So annual licensing, it's a licensing company among the top 100 licensing companies in the world, and they make so much of money out of this business of happiness. 1977, McDonald's introduced a Happy Meal. You know, try to a family sitting together and having a good meal. You know, I think those of us a little bit older, in the 40s and 50s, maybe we will remember that this 1988 Bobby McFerrin song, "Don't Worry, Be Happy," which became such a big hit for all of us. I think many of us are actually listening to that so often because that need to be happy was so high. Now, very recently, for example, 2011, the UN General Assembly has adopted that the attainment of happiness is a fundamental human goal. Again, you know, society raising a lot of, and I think in India, probably most of the time they focus on economic development. Today, India, you know, for example, also looks at happiness, but unfortunately, we are probably not right there. But the focus on happiness is becoming extremely serious business. Modern society is extremely focused on living a happy life. Now, the question is why? Why are we so hung on happiness? Why are we looking at happiness as a big thing? There's some very strong reasons. And one reason, of course, I will share, you know, the reasons is happiness is good for health, helps people, you know, less likely to, you know, happy people are less likely to get sick. The second is happy people have more fulfilling marriages, they have more friends. Third is happy people make more money. I'll probably share a research example here. They are more productive at work. Happy people are more generous. You know, happy people can cope better with stress, and happy people more creative and get to see the big picture. I mean, I'm not presenting anything surprising here, something that you didn't show. But what I want to point out is who benefits from this. You know, for example, if you look at today, individuals will want to be happy because they want to have good wealth, you know, good health. They want to have fulfilling marriages. They want to have more friends, and they want to cope better with stress. Organizations, how do they benefit from happiness? Because it makes for more productive employees. So organizations want people to be employees, more creative, see the big picture. They want leaders to be creative and big picture, and especially in this you know, world of COVID-19 and this VUCA world that we're talking of, everybody wants you to be doing different things. So organizations are also hung on happiness. They want the employees to be happy. Society, for example, less likely to get sick. Societies are more, because governments and countries and governments want people to be happy because they know they have to spend less on healthcare if the people are happy. They know that if people are happy, they make more money, adds to the GDP, adds to the economy. And they know that happy people are more generous, they are more willing to share. They try and bring down the economic disparity that exists. So therefore, whether it be it individual, be it, you know, organizations, be it societal, all of us know that being happy is in some way contributing towards as a society, as individuals, and therefore this whole focus on happiness. Okay, and some examples, I said, I think we made very generic statement that happy people are more this one, but there's some of the study, I just picked up one sample, and this is, students were picked up and who were identified as happy students. It's a longitudinal study. 16 years later, they found out that people who were seen as happy people in the college were earning more money. One more example, for example, this is a more data collection study. What they did is they looked at people who seemed genuinely happy in their school yearbook or college yearbook. And then they looked at how they found out that women who seemed to be genuinely happy, jumping with joy probably in the yearbook, showing very exciting, facial images, they turned out to be having more happy, more married, more satisfied marriages, satisfying marriages. So some research data very clearly pointing that this generic statement that we hear, happiness is good, there is some very strong fundamental research basis for this kind of, this one. Good, so we heard, why happiness and, how is it important? Now the big question, how do I become more happy? What contributes to my happiness? And this one will be surrounding around this one, societal conditions. I'm actually tempted to ask a few questions here, but I think in the interest of time, I will proceed this one. But basically my answer to this question will be surrounding these three areas: societal conditions of happiness, economic conditions of happiness, and personal conditions of happiness, things that can make us happy. This is some data that you will find. It's a commonly available data. This is a survey data that is being done. So there is a clear evidence that people who live in certain countries tend to be happy. I'm sure you can see if you're watching the screen, you will know that countries like US, Canada, Australia, the Scandinavian countries around, even some of these countries, they all seem, the ones that are pointed in green arrows, they all seem to be much more happy because at some level, societal conditions, probably the need to struggle less for life or basic necessities makes a certain people happy. Not very, kind of flattering, but I think India is somewhere we can do better. I'm sure we can do better with our history and with our way of doing this. We can certainly be better, but probably what's holding us back is a little bit of economic development. So, but the message from this one, are there certain specific locations or specific societies where you live if you will be happy? Certainly, yes. Yes, if you, for example, for youngsters who are looking to immigrate, probably Canada, US, and Australia and Scandinavian countries may be a good idea. That's this one. But more importantly, how can we make India happy? How can we make our societies happy? I think one certain way is economic development. So therefore, all of us, if we are more productive, if we are doing better things to improve our economy, I mean, we don't need to be doing great things. We can just do our job better and earn more. That's all I'm telling. I'm not telling we need to kind of we take care of ourselves and our families. I'm sure as a society, we're going to be a little bit more happy. So that's, but also, of course, there is some reasons also that why people can be unhappy, internal conflicts or conflict with neighboring regions. So exactly the reason why we should be avoiding any conflict with our neighboring countries, because where countries have conflicts with each other around the neighbors, there seems to be a sense of unhappiness. So how can we make our country happy? Probably try and avoid conflicts as much as possible, try and make economic development as a focus. As individuals, we contribute in the best way we can in terms of improving society. Now that brings me to the next question of money and happiness. I think here I would like to kind of ask a question. I'm tempted to stop and ask a question and ask, do you think, what's your opinion? Do you think money contributes to happiness? And what's your thought? Quick, yes, no, maybe, what do you think is this one? Okay, people are telling no, yes, no. To an extent, yes, okay. Maybe, no, yeah, I think, yeah, the opinion is divided. I can understand. I'm sure many of us believe that money is not the temporary happiness, certainly not always. Thank you so much. I'm really so grateful for your interactions. Wonderful to see all this, wonderful reactions. It really enthuses me, makes me know that you're all involved in what I'm sharing. But I'm going to share some data. This is really, again, coming from research. It's not an opinion. I'm not going to state whether money is going to make you happy. I'm going to present you some data which can make us take a call what exactly it is. Okay. So this one, wealthy nations tend to be happy. Certainly, it looks like there is evidence that money certainly seems to be making people happy because economically developed countries seem to be a little happier. But then there's also data. US, GDP has doubled. US economy has doubled, but the happiness levels have not risen. So there's a conflicting opinion. Money makes happy. Developed economies are happy, but US economy has developed, but people are not happy, any more happy than they were used. Korean, for example, Korean, some of the most wealthy people, are committing suicide. I'm sure all of you heard of K-pop. Many of these K-pop groups, are actually the stars are committing suicide. They have everything they want. They have fame, they have money, but God knows why, but something is going wrong. So again, conflicting message that money may not be the only key to make us happy. Some millionaires are dissatisfied because they are not billionaires. And we also know, I'm sure in India, we tend to see this because of a spiritual orientation, a religious orientation, our sense of the Nishkamakam attitude makes us think, we see so many people who are very ordinary, may not be earning huge income, probably they're staying in a very small house, therefore, but still they seem to be very happy with what they're doing. So there is this conflicting message coming, does money really make us happy? We really don't know. But I'm going to share some data which comes from very strong research that says, study finds that there is a correlation between money and happiness. This is a US-based study. So there are two US-based studies. One study says till $75,000, there is a direct correlation between money and happiness. So which means if you earn $75,000 per year, the happiness keeps going up. But beyond that, the happiness tapers off. Beyond that, let's say you earn $1 lakh, you are not going to be any more happier. You're just going to be as happy probably as you were at $75,000. Another study by Purdue University says the same thing, but this time the money is $125,000, which means, your happiness keeps on increasing till $125,000, but beyond that, it doesn't go up. So there's some research basis. The graph shows probably you can replace. I showed the graph with $75,000, just replace with $125,000, and we have the answer that probably beyond that. So there are these two studies that provide some basis to say that income does suddenly kind of this. And even for example, I know a story in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. One of the questions, Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi are having a discussion, and she asked, "Will wealth make me happy?" So Yajnavalkya, the sage, says, "You know what? Wealth will make you only as comfortable as it can, but it cannot make you happy, or it cannot ensure you get enlightenment." So some of those, so there is some basis to say that money certainly makes us happy because it increases our comfort level. That physical comfort, our daily struggles of life are reduced. So we don't have to worry where our next meal is coming from. So certainly there's some basis to say money can make us happy, but there is a limit to which it can take us. So basically, and I'm just giving this is my calculation, please, this is not some research. I've just converted the $75,000 and I've taken this $125. It's not direct conversion. I've taken a measure called the purchase power parity. This is not economic class. Please, you can Google what purchase power parity is, but it works out to $18.38. So basically it says, if you were looking from an Indian perspective, maybe anywhere between 14 lakhs to 23 lakhs is probably where we are most, our happiness peaks. Beyond that, this is just, a conjecture I'm making based on the data that's been on the year. So maybe let's say you might think not 23, maybe it's 30 lakhs, and somebody say not 14 lakhs, maybe 12 lakhs is sufficient for me. But some indication telling that money certainly seems to be having those. So I really want to in some way settle the question if there's a mind, money does not make me happy. No, there is some basis to say that money certainly has some basis for this one. Now the other factors. So we covered societal factors, we covered economic factors. Now we come to the individual factors. Now again, I want to ask you a question: which of these factors do you think contributes to individual happiness? Does a biological constitution, a genetic constitution, does it contribute to happiness? Does our individual circumstances contribute to happiness? Maybe I'll go with the first one: genetic factors. Do you think the genetic factors contribute to happiness? I just want a simple yes or no. If you can give me a simple yes or no, okay. I see some yes. Anybody else? Yes, no. Some people are telling no. Mostly yes. Some no. Yes. Okay. Some extent yes. Okay. So yes, I think we will go there. So individual circumstances. By that I mean material conditions, and the third is behavior. I think Saujanya is telling all three factors are important. Yes, we will see some evidence of that again from research. It's not my invention. It's from research. For example, research shows very clear. Many researchers are now pointing out that there's a very clear indication that our biological factors have a reasonably or equally important role to play. It says that it contributes, the studies say that it contributes to up to 50%. I know some of us will start questioning, you know what, if biology is going to contribute my happiness, whatever I'm going to do is not making. That's not really the case. For example, if I tell that today I have a magic wand, and I say by magic wand, I make all of us genetic clones of each other. Just by I'm telling, we all have become genetic clones of each other. So does it mean all our happiness levels are the same? No. There is going to be, happiness levels are going to be different, but the differences may be a little bit lower. It doesn't mean that just because we are all biologically similar, all of us are equally happy, simply because the behavior and circumstances do contribute. But 50% or so, fairly substantial amount coming from a biological way of thinking that, yes, our genetic constitution does contribute to happiness. The second is life circumstances, whether we are rich or poor, married, divorced. I just want to be a little bit funny and just say, let's say some of you are unhappy with your partners and you're thinking, you know what, I'm living with a lousy partner. I want to change my partner and that's going to make me happy. Please, I want to caution you, that's going to only add 10% to your happiness. It's not going to make you extremely happy. So I'm just trying to be a little bit funny here, but the point I'm trying to make is life circumstances, whether you live in a bigger house or a smaller house, whether you have 10 million income or less than 10 million income, any of those changes is really not going to significantly alter your happiness. But one very important thing that I really want to focus on is that's why I said, how can we be more happy? The focus is going to be 40% is contributed by our behavior. How do we behave? So therefore, we can very, very voluntarily, take on activities that can make us happy. So which means 40%, just in terms of numbers, let's say, for example, if you measure a 10-point scale, 5% comes from happiness, 1 point from circumstances, 4 points from behavioral pattern. So assume that biologically we are set at 5. Even if you're set at 5, which is a maximum from a biological point of view, let's say you change your spouse, your partner, your car, your house and all that, it's just going to move you from 5 to 6. But what can move you from 5 to 9, for example, 80% increase on a 5, you move to 4 points, 80% can come from changing your behavior. How do I behave? So that's going to really make a difference in terms of whether we can be happy or not. So that's something. So therefore, I just want to kind of use this, serenity prayer that we all know. I'm sure all of us know that the serenity. So those of you disagree that genetic factors may not have, please accept that there is research evidence now sufficiently available that says that genetic factors. For example, it's like, I'm sure you don't notice, some people eat food, never put on weight, but some people they have one burger and the next day, 2 weeks, 2 kgs up. So there seems to be some biology happening. The similar, even from a happiness perspective, there is some evidence that there is biology is going to. So let's accept it, but what can we do? The courage to change comes from trying to change our behavior and the wisdom to know that material circumstances will not substantially alter. Yes, we need to have a comfortable life. We need to earn sufficient money, but really going beyond a certain point is not going to make us any more happier than we are. That's really, from this quote, I wanted to kind of this one. So this probably one quick exercise for us to kind of proceed further. This is a very, very short survey, well researched, validated and reliable, but very quick. So not, in that sense, may not be so reliable, but maybe you can quickly do some mathematics around this, quickly rate yourself where you are. In general, for you to know, I don't want you to post it anything here, but do this check for yourself and check how happy you are. In general, I consider myself happy on a scale of 1 to 7, how happy you are. I'll give a couple of, probably 30 seconds for you to then hope you answered the first one. Moving to the second, compared with most of my peers, I consider myself less happy or more happy. What do you know? Don't think too much. Just quickly, get a number. I'm sure many of your psychologists organized by the Department of Psychology. I'm sure there are many psychologists around here, but just want to kind of quickly put that number there and say, how do you compare yourself with peers? The third one, some people are generally happy. A question: to what extent does this characterization describe you? And the fourth one, some people are generally unhappy. How much does it describe? And probably you can do a quick calculation of this. Just one sec. I think this is so quick calculation, add up 1, 2, 3, 4, divide by 4. And some scores, this is extrapolated from the country average scores. Maybe this is not a statistical, this one I will not get in, but just have this understanding that if your average of the scores is 3.47, then probably from a country, India perspective, you're less happy than most people. But if your scores are about 3.79, probably you're more happier than most people in the. So it's based, the Indian average is on a 7-point scale is 3.47, 3.78, compared to the 10-point scale that we saw earlier in one of the graphs, which says from 4.96 to 5.42. So this is what, kind of this one. So I'll move on. I hope all of you, can I say all of you have taken this? Yes, no? Can I see the chats and say, can I move on? Yes, okay. So I will move on. I will move on, kind of this one. How can now coming to how can I increase my happiness levels? How this one. So I will probably stress over spend a couple of minutes telling this. There are two ways. One is how we can reduce unhappy behaviors, and the other is happy behaviors. Now one is to reduce unhappy behaviors, the other is to add happy behaviors. How do we reduce unhappiness? I will give from research, from evidence from research. Quickly rushing through, I'm just giving an example. Let's say we all give a test. And we all take a test, and and there are case 1, I score very low marks. Case 2, I score very high marks. Let's look at some examples here. So there's a scale of unhappiness to happiness. So I'm taking case 1, I score very low, and I'm unhappy because I scored very low. Case 2, I'm happy because I scored very high. Now let's look at another. I get the information that my peers have scored lower than me in case 1. I scored low, but my peers have scored lower than me. So what happens? I tend to be a little bit happy. Oh, you know what? I did bad, but my peers have done more worse than me. So that actually moves me to a happiness scale. So the range may vary. Some may become extremely happy. Some may just be, the unhappiness might be marginally reduced, but there's going to be a movement happening there. The second is, for example, let's say the second case, I scored high, but I found out that my peers have scored much higher than me. Suddenly my happiness becomes a little unhappy because all of them have done better than me. Now, there is evidence that shows that people who see this huge jump, that I jump from unhappiness to happy because others have not done well, and I become unhappy because others have done better than me. People who show this huge, way are generally those unhappy people who tend to show this kind of happy people who are more contented, who don't really compare themselves with too much with others, generally tend to be more or less, So there is this evidence showing that, coming back to the slide, that social comparison is one huge reason why people become happy. So happy individuals are less sensitive to social comparison, whereas unhappy individuals, I think we all know the statement keeping up with the Joneses. Probably unhappy individuals are more focused on not only keeping up, but keeping a step ahead of the Joneses. So social comparison probably is one major reason for unhappiness. That's something we can try and control, try and manage that aspect. So that's one evidence. The second is, imagine the situation. Again, one more example. Imagine the situation. You go to a restaurant and I'm required to make a choice. So I walk into a restaurant. I'm required to choose whether I'm going to have strawberry or chocolate. There is no guarantee I will receive the one I choose. So even if I choose strawberry, there's no guarantee I will get chocolate. So that's this one. Now, how do happy and unhappy people behave? The happy people, they really don't care whatever they get. So either way, they're happy. Whether they get strawberry, they're happy. They get chocolate, they chose strawberry, but they get chocolate, they're still happy. But unhappy people somehow tend to justify the choice. My choice was bad, but your choice is worse, kind of this one. This is my own statement, nothing. It's more almost like telling my grapes are sour, but the grapes I didn't get are more sour. So I opted for strawberry. I got strawberry. I'm unhappy because it's not really a great taste, but chocolate is more horrible. So something like that, all the time looking at from that perspective. Unhappy people apparently tend to display this kind of behavior. So decision rationalization is always this one. So I'm going to jump and quickly conclude because 4 parameters here. So social comparison is one major reason for unhappy. This one. So unhappy people tend to do more social comparison. Unhappy people to rationalize decisions in a negative fashion, that what they have is not good, but what others have is actually worse. So that's something rationalization they do. Even control. Apparently, unhappy people tend to view most interactions in a negative way. There are research evidence I'm not able to share because of shortage of time, but there isn't enough evidence to say that unhappy people tend to remember every event in a negative fashion. And then self-reflection. I think many times we feel happy people, they don't reflect so much, so they're quite happy with what happens, happy-go-lucky. But on the other hand, people who think deeply about issues may be unhappy. That's really not true. Research evidence very clearly shows that unhappy people tend to ruminate more on negative experiences, whereas happy people tend to dwell a lot more on happy. So that's really the difference, So some insights that, I'm not sure how much of this each of you or each of us can control, but social comparison probably we should try and consciously avoid. Decision rationalization, maybe you look at the positive side. Even consider maybe the idea is focus more on positive experiences and self-reflection, try and kind of this one. Okay, so let's come back to how to be happy. I think I'm just looking at the time. We're 19:15, so we still have 15 minutes to go. So how to be happy? Let's come back to that question. So there is no magic wand to happiness. We can't wave a wand and become happy. But some insight. I'm going to share some ideas of how to be happy. This is Aristotle statement. Different men seek after happiness. So therefore, there is no one way we all can be happy. Not all of us are going to be happy by just, for example, let's say you think having a meaningful life is more going and working in an NGO. Certainly not for all of us. Some of us actually not like to work in an NGO, not go to an orphanage every day, not go to an old age home every day. So those may not be the activities for all of us. So different means for different people. That's the message I'm trying to kind of convey through this message. And therefore, what makes us happy? This is really the core. We may not be able to spend too much time, but I still want to give a broad. So what makes us happy? There is this very fantastic book written by Martin Seligman, who's a great researcher on happiness. He's written a book on Flourish, a visionary new understanding of happiness. He has from research, and now there is increasingly enough evidence to say there are these 5 parameters that make us happy. One is experiencing positive emotions that display behaviors that enhance our positive emotions. Engagement, doing involved in whatever we're doing. Whatever we do, let's say even if, for example, it's dishwashing, which none of us may enjoy, or the ladies may say, I don't like to cook. The men may say, you're asking me to go doing a outside chore, I don't like it, but probably engaging, thinking, what am I learning from this? What I can do better? Is there something, how do I, so something, engagement, seems to be another. Relationship, very, very, for example, there's been the strong recommendation during lockdown, no physical engagement, social, please, be active, active on your social, this one, and build so relationships bring a lot of more, authentic happiness and connections, meaning, do something that's add meaning to your life. And achievement, focus on trying, so this was some ideas. So PERMA is positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning in life, and focus on achievement. Some explanation here of what it means to know a sense of gratitude, satisfaction, inspiration is positive emotion. Engagement is truly trying to engage ourselves in a task, a state of flow. I think the psychologists will understand what I mean by flow. A positive relationship, that how can we enjoy relationship with people, whether it's workplace, whether it's family, whether it's society. Meaning is, try and serve a bigger cause. Not all of us need to be going to orphanages. Probably like, Timmakas did. Maybe we can plant trees. Maybe we can, do some sustainability initiative. Something that each of us will have our own way of adding meaning to our lives. So that's something. And accomplishment, achievement, focusing on what makes us, feel that we have achieved something in life. So that kind of brings us, this one, what activities. We may not be able to spend too much of time, but this is a list of activities. For example, making new friends and strengthening connections apparently adds to happiness. Showing gratitude. For example, at Christ University, we always have this gratitude day where probably students are asked to kind of buy some chocolates and share it to the housekeeping staff. And really, you should see the happiness, both the parties. The students are so happy that they did something. The housekeeping staff are happy because they feel recognized on that day, because all other days we are just ignoring that. But some ways of doing that. So maybe we can make it more frequent events. Cultivating optimism, some ways to kind of, for example, focus on the positive. We said unhappy people tend to focus on negatives. Maybe focusing on positive experiences, doing things that makes us optimistic. Maybe having a plan A, having a plan B. So cultivating optimism by having plan B for any unforeseen situations. Things like, I'm just jumping, coping strategies, for example. I'm sure my wife, Dr. Anuradha, was speaking on holistic happiness, mindfulness, coping strategies. How can you focus on health and all that? So many other things, cultivating a growth mindset. I'm sure you're all here because you want to grow. So that's also one. I'm sure this is going to, at some sense, it's going to make you feel that I'm growing, I'm participating, I'm learning from so many. So therefore, cultivating a growth mindset. Committing to your goals. I can share my personal example. I remember I was doing my PhD, and I was hesitant to touch my thesis because every time I touched my thesis, I would have butterflies in my stomach. But I remember, everyone around me, my wife and my bride and everyone telling me, spend just 10 minutes, focus on your goals. You will. And when I actually started doing it, made a huge difference. What started off 10 minutes, I actually started spending an hour became 2 hours. And then I really got so committed doing that, things really moved forward. So sometimes, we might be hesitant to do that, but committing to your goals can actually make us more happy, kind of meditation. And I'm sure in the Indian context, I really don't need to stress on it. I'm sure enough and more people have talked about meditation, taking care of a body and soul, religions. We have enough and more in we call the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. We have all those, philosophies that can make us happy. So there's so many of these activities that can make us happy. So for paucity of time, I'm really kind of quickly moving forward. This is some research resources, probably. If I share the slides, this can be circulated, but some of this comes from this research that how can you be more happy? What can you do to be more happy? So, therefore, but the point here is don't do those things because you want to be happy. Do those things because you like doing it. Let's say what I'm reading a book, don't read the book thinking you will be happy. Read the book because you want to read the book. That will contribute to happiness, because there is a very clear evidence that seeking happiness is one of the major causes for unhappiness. Never seek happiness. Seek to do things that you like. Seek to do things that you love. Seek to do things that you enjoy. Then happiness is a byproduct. It comes because you do things that you like. That's really the message I want to kind of drive. This kind of, again, summarizing what I said, no secret to happiness. Each of us has to find our own way of happiness. Not everybody can be happy in orphanage. Not everybody can be happy planting trees. Not everybody can be happy doing Swachh Bharat. So really, we really have to find our own ways of this one. Fit with the strengths. I think I've given the link here. You can actually find what your strengths are and decide based on the strengths how you can improve your happiness. Fit with a lifestyle. For example, if you're a morning person, there's no point in doing things at late night. Or if you're a late person, there's no point in going to a gym early morning, because then it's going to be unhappy. You'll do it for 1 week, you'll do it for 3 weeks. Probably after 4th week, you're going to be exhausted. You're not going to live that lifestyle. So don't adopt things that is not consistent with your lifestyle. If you're a late person, take up activities that aligns with your lifestyle. If you're an early person, do things that aligns with the early lifestyle. For example, going for a walk, early morning walk, where nobody's on the street, maybe going to the gym at that time. So really, it's very individual. It's a person activity fit. So that's something I kind of want to drive this one. So just to summarize the discussions, definition of happiness, and its 2 types we kind of discussed. We discussed the importance of happiness in modern society, individual, organization. This one, we looked at individual, societal, and economic factors that contribute to happiness. We also did a self-assessment of happiness levels, approach to increasing happiness, reduce unhappy behaviors, and how to add happy behaviors. And we discussed the PERMA model. PRMA stands for positive emotions, engagement, relationship, meaning, and achievement, as a model for us to kind of see how. This is not it doesn't solve everything, but it gives us a guidance that doing these things can be kind of a little bit, make us happy. So I started with the story. So therefore, I'll also conclude with the story. And this goes like this. For example, I'm sure some of you would have heard it. A professor walks into a philosophy class and he says, places a bottle, large mayonnaise jar, and says, proceeds to fill it with golf balls. And he asks the students, is the jar full? They all look at the golf balls the bottle is full of golf balls. They say yes. Then the professor picks up pebbles. He throws those pebbles in, and the pebbles fit in the space. And asks the students, is the jar full? And they all, yes, the jar was full because the pebbles are there. Then he takes the sand and he says, you put the sand, it goes into spaces, it fills it up. So therefore, students are happy. He asks the student, is it full? He says, yeah. They say, yes, it's full. Then the professor produces this 2 pints of beer into this one, and then he pours it, and the water sinks in, and the students laugh, and so therefore so he does it. And then he says, after the laughter is gone, he said, I want you to recognize that the jar is the life, and the golf balls are the most important things. Your family, children, health, friends, this is what the PERMA model says. Your family, your relationships, your work, those are things, kind of this one, work that adds meaning, not work as in the sake of work, but work that adds meaning. So that's something. And the pebbles are the smaller things, your job, your house, and we said the 1 point or the 10% of changing your house, you're changing your car, doesn't, but those are smaller things, doesn't really add happiness. And the sand is all the small stuff. But the problem is, if you fill our life with the sand, all the small stuff, there is no space for the bigger bigger aspect. So that really is a message. And one of the students asked, okay, what do you mean by, what does a beer stand for? And he says, no matter how busy you are, you're never busy to have a beer, a couple of beer. I'm not suggesting you should have a beer. Maybe you should have a coffee with your friend, but basically telling that you can be kind of, that's really the message. So I hope I ended on time. It's 19:25. I'm sorry. I think we took a little bit of 5 minutes extra, but kind of thank you for listening to me. And if there are any questions, we can kind of take it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an enlightening presentation. Apart from being a core member, I'm also an alumni of Christ. So it's so nice.
Okay, wonderful. You made my day. Oh, it's so wonderful. Yeah.
I've been a student of Anuradha ma'am, sir.
Okay. Very so happy. We are always happy to see Christ Lives doing well. So happy to see you there. It's so good to see
you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We will be now taking questions.
Yes.
The first question will be from Brinta Dharmalinam. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Ms. Brinta, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, we'll take the, okay. Please raise your hands. The hands have been removed. I request the participants to raise your hands, whoever has a question. We'll take a question from Lynn Panakal. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. It was a wonderful session. So, am I audible? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your feedback.
Yes, sir.
It makes my day. Honestly, it makes my day. If I made a difference to other people.
It was a wonderful session, and I am quite amazed at how you were able to bring in all aspects and so much of research in this little period of time. It shows your deep commitment to the topic of happiness, your pursuit of happiness.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, I had a question. You mentioned 2 schools of thought in Indian philosophy. Could you repeat that, please? I missed that bit. I
didn't. I was not actually referring to schools of Indian philosophy. I said there are 2 types of happiness: the hedonic and the eudaimonia. So,
yes, and you mentioned the Indian.
Yeah, Indian. I think some of the schools there are of course the Indian philosophy is so rich. I think that's an entire whole series of webinars by itself. But one of the schools that is Charvakas, I mentioned as being a materialistic in there. Some of their beliefs were around. I think Charvakas. There are a couple of other. I can't right now recall, but there are a couple of schools that believe that all this idea about meaning in life, all these things about the search for meaning, doing bigger things has no meaning. Nothing has any meaning in this life. A nihilistic kind of an approach. So Charvakas were very focused on apparently materialistic, sensual gratification, and focus, eat, enjoy, live life. So that's really one. But Indian schools, those are not only 2 schools. Indian schools are actually more than 12 schools. I think the Astika and the Nastika schools. That's really the Indian classification. Honestly, ma'am, that's a huge topic by itself. But this is what in short, I have to tell you that I refer to the Charvaka school, which is the Nastika school, doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in life, just probably materialistic orientation. That's one school. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you, ma'am. I think if I answered that question, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. But it was a wonderful session.
Thank you.
God bless you, sir, in your pursuit of happiness.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next question will be from Shilpa. Shilpa, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. It was a very wonderful session.
You.
Sir, I had one doubt.
Okay.
So when you were talking about how unhappy people react,
Right.
You mentioned like they dwell more on negative experiences in life.
Right.
So how do we motivate them to start thinking on positive and to move on with the negative experiences?
I know. I mean, if we had that modern magic wand, we could do that. But there is really no direct or straight answer I can give, ma'am. But if you see, I shared that idea that there is one happy, unhappy. This one that's a genetic constitution that makes us unhappy, and there is a behavior part. I think that is left. I don't know if we can motivate people to be unhappy. probably that motivation to be happy, motivate people to be happy, probably that's where the behavior part comes in. I don't know, maybe we can only motivate them to do certain activities that we feel that align with their strengths. We didn't get into that strengths and all that. There's a very deep research in terms of how to identify our strengths and take up activities that makes us. So even if people are unhappy, probably we can help them to identify what their strengths are. Let them start focusing on the strengths, and maybe we can guide. I'm sure psychologists like you, and I have a psychologist at home. My wife is a psychologist. So all of you can probably guide, telling that, these are your strengths, not focus on the weakness. These are your strengths. And therefore, in alignment with your strengths, reduce your social comparison. Maybe you should take up this, probably going to the gym is not your task. Maybe reading a book is for you. Maybe, jumping around in sports field is not your task. Maybe, kind of meditating is for you. So probably there is some way, I think there's not enough research done. And there's a lot of research on happiness, how to be happy, but there's not, I think it falls on the clinical psychologist side, how to make unhappy people happy. Probably the clinical psychologists are more of an expert on that. But my own take from this research is that probably we should help them to focus on what the strengths are and helping them to take up activities that will make them, contribute to not that happiness, the activity should be done with a focus on happiness. Rather, they should do those activities which gives them a sense of satisfaction. Therefore, it contributes as a byproduct, happiness comes in. So that's really my response. I'm not sure if I answered you completely, but this is really my limited understanding of what you asked and what I respond.
Thank you, sir. That really makes sense.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. The next question is from Dr. Arvind. He's mentioned it in the chat box, sir. I'll read it out to you. Fulfillment of small desires and achievements may make us happy. Happiness is within us, just to explore it, isn't it?
Absolutely agree with it. I think at some level, if we say happiness comes from within, I think the school that says satisfaction comes from doing meaningfulness is actually what Dr. Arvind is actually referring to. But I don't think we should discount even the small pleasures in life. For example, I know I have the session, but after the session, what I would love most is have a cup of coffee. But that's not unimportant. That's equally important. So therefore, the sensual pleasures, we should not ignore that. Let's accept we have those senses, God or nature as gifted or given us. Sometimes we see it as a gift. Sometimes we see it as a painful thing. But let's accept that we are gifted with that. We are having it. So therefore, let's not deny that, because even in the Bhagavad Gita, the philosophy is very clear. Don't torture yourself. Don't deny things, because ultimately your senses are so strong, it will come back and hit you. You might think, I will control myself, wake up every morning at 4 o'clock, go to the gym. But at some point of time, your senses will overtake you and your mind will not be able to capture your senses. So unless we have reached that extreme level of I remember, I think I may take a little bit of couple of minutes, but I really want to share a story and experience. This was, I think, Swami Yogananda, who wrote the book on autobiography of Yogi. He went to meet Gandhiji once in his Varda ashram, and he was served a meal. And Yogi, Swami Yogananda, Yogi, who he believed or others believed had attained certain things in life which is not for commoners. And Gandhiji was there, a common man working involved in the world. They were having a meal, and leaves, something like palak leaves were served, and both of Gandhiji and Swami Yogananda were sitting and eating, and Swami Yogananda ate that leaf. He immediately spat it out. It was so bitter, he spat it out. And next he turned to Gandhiji, and he saw Gandhiji was chewing these leaves as he was eating sweets. He was enjoying it with so much of pleasure that he was eating. So this kind of, really, sometimes, even though we think we can control our senses, it is, despite our best intentions, our senses are not in control. So let's not deny that. Let's accept it. Simple pleasure. I'm not telling we need to get to the extent of drug addiction. No, that's really this one. But simple stuff, a cup of coffee, going, out for friends, for a movie. These are things we should accept and be normal. And then, of course, the meaningful lives, teaching in an NGO, going for tree plantation, all those things are there. But those alone are not. I think we are humans. We are born with the senses as well as the thinking capability, probably one of the gifted animals on the planet who have that ability to think for themselves. So we need to balance both. So that's really my humble submission. Let's not deny either. Both are equally important. That's my submission, really.
Thank you, sir. We'll take the next question from Akshaya Lakshmi.
Thank you for the opportunity, Ika. Thank you so much, sir. It was a really wonderful session.
Thank you.
I
Thank
guess
you,
a
ma'am.
lot of people are going to say that it is a wonderful session, but I do say that it is from my heart. I say that it is a wonderful session.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yes, thank you, sir. And during this pandemic, I feel like the happiness part is people are forcing themselves to be happy and searching for how to become happy. And some people do say that simple things, observe the simple things, you will be happy, all those things. But my personal view is like, if we accept the situation, then we get the light to see the happiness. What do you say about that, sir? Just
Okay, ma'am, Akshaya, ma'am, okay. I mentioned, let's say I go for a jogging every day tomorrow onwards because I want to be happy. But if I take up jogging because I want to be happy, it is not going to work. Okay. But if I go for jogging because I like waking up in the morning and I like to jog when nobody's around, that as a byproduct will bring me happiness. So again, I really want to go back to that story of 100 years and 1,000 years. A person doing penance for years and years because the focus on enlightenment. But this woodcutter is really not focus on enlightenment. He just wants to live happy. He's doing his wood cutting. He's coming. He's ignorant. Probably doesn't know. But even despite telling 1,000 years is going to. So the idea is not to chase. If you chase happiness, I can promise you're going to be unhappy. We need to chase things that we like to do. Like I said, after this you want to go for a cup of coffee, great. For some of you, oh my God, what a heavy session. I really want to go for a walk. It gives you happiness. Please go and do it. But you should not do it because that walking is going to make you happy. You should do it because you're walking. That walking is going to make you feel good, and therefore, happiness comes as a byproduct. That's really, my decision. So let's not do things to be happy. Let's do things because we like doing it, we enjoy doing it. That's really the core of this whole crux of this entire issue.
But I think a few people are like covered up with anxiety and fear, which they don't feel like that liking part itself is not focused, is what I feel.
Probably, therefore, my limited understanding of the depth of clinical psychology and, I think when we talk of happiness, there are two kinds of people who are flourishing and people who are languishing. Languishing people are people who probably are seeing things a negative way. If there are a clinical issue, probably this is not the session. Probably the clinical people should be the ones addressing it. But if we are those normal people, we believe we are normal, then probably I would suggest that they probably should identify what the strengths are, what they need to focus. Because many times we are not aware what makes us happy. It comes as a surprise. For example, sometimes you don't know reading is your thing. You suddenly get hold of a book and you start reading. You find, oh my God, I really love this. And that happened to us, for example, I need to tell this, when in our personal life, that happened to us when we were watching these movies on Netflix. For many years, we actually avoided this Prime Video and Netflix because we thought we will never, this online movie, video watching is not. But today, honestly, we spend more time there because we get so much of knowledge, information there. So many times we don't know what this one. So we are all, we think we know everything, but actually we don't know much of it. I'm sure even Einstein told, I think even Einstein never used more than 90% of his brain. So we are honestly very, very, very humble, very, very simple people. I think our brain usage is very, very limited. So maybe we should question our own attitude and say, hey, do I really know myself? Let me take a strength survey and figure out if there is something that I don't know about myself. Probably that's the only way I think we can guide and probably we can move. So that's my simplistic and
very true, sir. Very true. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sir, we'll be taking one last question. Would that
Okay,
be
sure. Yeah, I think
it's from Samyukta. Havingers have given about 3 A's of happiness: acceptance, affection, and achievement. What is your view on it, sir?
Okay, I think that answer, I think very good. I think that answer lies already in the PERMA model I just shared. I think acceptance comes from that positive emotions that when you accept, you feel positive about it. Any event, any negative event, the moment you accept it, we know we go through a stage of denial and it takes us to come through. But the moment you accept, we are over the problem, the first one. I think achievement, again, I think the PERMA model quite well covers that achievement, a sense of achievement in life. For example, Probably today I'm going to be happy because so many of you have given me this great feedback. So I'm going to be happy because I feel I have made some difference in sharing my research. Maybe some people have benefited. It's a sense of achievement for me because what I've done for so many 3-4 years of work, probably in some small way I've shared. So it's a sense of achievement for me to be sharing with this small audience. So that sense of achievement is actually quite important. So therefore I totally agree. I think the PARMA model quite very well fits in what I think this question was raised. I don't recall who raised that question, but that's really my submission. Certainly, yes, well-made point, fully accepted. And I think the PARMA model is my kind of submission that probably that model kind of gives us an idea how we can be happy.
Thank you so much, sir, for patiently answering all our questions.
Thank you. No, it's my pleasure.
It was such a lovely session, sir. We are very, very happy with how the session went in today. It's increased our happiness index, is what I can say. Thank you, sir. I would like to have Krishnan sir give us the feedback of the session and Suresh sir to give us the vote of thanks.
Satyan sir, no words to express because it's all research based. So you can't say generally that the happiness and things like that. Everything is every slide and every word of yours was based on your research, and also the Uncle Google also gave lots of data, which we didn't even think about that Google can give this kind of thing. This data can be used like that, and it has given some kind of knowledge where we can also look for what and things like that. It's a fantastic session, very enlightening, enriching experience, and you covered so much. With this 45-50 minutes, you covered so much. It is probably it's a one-day session probably, which you have comprised to to 1 hour. It is fantastic. Thank you so very much, and I must thank Anuradha ma'am also too. When I asked, she was giving that. Thank you so very much. And so it is, all of us, whoever is there in the session today, plus, we are sharing this entire session through Facebook. So many people are going to be benefited. There is no doubt about it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I really need to once again thank Murugesan sir. You, sorry, I forget the student from Christ University. Can I have the name?
Ekta, sir. Ekta.
So Ekta, thank you so much. I'm so proud you're here anchoring this session. Christites make us proud. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I really thank the audience. They've been wonderful. I'm so enthused by the feedback. I'm going to jump with joy. You made my day. So I'm going to be happy today and probably have a cup of coffee with my wife and my son. So thank you once again. Really wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's my duty to record my sincere thanks to you, sir, for amazing presentation. I think there are many feedback they already given. Myself, I taken few learnings from your session, sir. One is on research, finding how we can include Google search into presentation. That is an amazing. And another one is when you were giving the points, which were clearly mentioned, and that background colors and then letters colors were highly catchy. Two things I really enjoyed a lot, and then the points which were very familiar. It is easy to understand, even for the last session, the strategy which were given for enriching happiness. A person who can able to read, they can able to get the points. That is a simplicity I can find it in your presentation, sir. I record my sincere gratitude to you from the Department of Psychology and American College and the core team and the associating institutions and the different agencies, associations of different associations like Indian Association of Mental Health and Wellbeing, International Association of Psychotherapy and Counseling, and International Association of Psycho-Oncology. So these were the associations. On behalf of them, I record my sincere thanks to you, sir. And I record my sincere thanks to all the participants. I thank you for your continuous support of our initiative. Thank you all. We'll meet in our 100th session on tomorrow. We'll meet again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, dear participants, you can send us questions and feedback to mywebinarfeedback@gmail.com, and we will be getting it answered from the expert, and we will be reverting it back to you. Please join us for the 100th session tomorrow. We are finally hitting a century, and we're very, very excited as a core team. So we will see you tomorrow for another session. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for
Thank you. Can I leave the meeting now?
yes, sir. Thank you.